Edith Colon Lopez. I was listening to your podcast on the subject of conspiracy theories. I myself was in a cult for 9 years, and I know that I am vulnerable along these lines of thinking. What is your opinion of David Icke? I have been somewhat confused by the guy who connects the dots. It's been 24 years since I've left the Brethren, and I am just now working on my own cult experience story. I am so glad I found your podcasts. They are very helpful. Hey, thanks, Edith. And, well done on getting out of that whole situation and tackling it head on here. I'm really glad that the work that I've been doing has been of help to you, really. Now, as far as David Icke, okay, so David Icke is basically somebody I have put in the same barrel as Alex Jones or the Flat Earthers, right? Or these kind of wingnut, people who really can't think well and delude themselves into their thinking and how great they are as critical thinkers. That it's sad, really. It's kind of tragic and pathetic in some ways because these people think of themselves as masterful critical thinkers, and they really can't think of themselves way through a wet paper bag. I mean, it's really bad. They and the deep 9/11 truther conspiracy theory type stuff I'm talking about. The flat earth stuff. I mean, these are just completely delusional worldviews. And David Icke contributes to all of that because his view is that he had, I guess David Icke used to be like a professional ball player, soccer player. He's English. And then he became a media personality or I think a sports announcer of some kind. And then one day had this kind of glowing epiphany, which frankly, to me, sounds like he might have had some kind of head trauma or brain seizure or something. I mean, I've done a whole episode about temporal lobe epilepsy and what that causes and some of the symptoms of it. We talked about that in relation to L. Ron Hubbard. This was a podcast I will link to in the notes below because I'd like you guys to check it out. And David Icke might very well be suffering from something very similar. Maybe not. I'm just totally throwing that out there as a possible explanation for why he has such insanely irrational ideas. But one day he had some big epiphany, and he started talking about lizard creatures from, I think, another dimension or another planet or something. And they were blood drinkers, and the royal family of England and other high-level international bankers, I believe, or world leaders were part of this alien cabal that exists right here, right now on planet Earth. And this is what we are all subjected to, and we're in a slave society, and all the markers of slavery are pointed to, like the cameras all over all over London that can see you everywhere you go, and the surveillance state, and every single controversy that ever arises out of the intelligence community is pointed to as proof that the alien people are real and that we are living in this slave state in a prison planet. This is where Alex Jones and Scientology cross, and they, really find common ground on this. And David Icke is part of this. Alex Jones even commented one time that he wondered about David Icke as to whether he was some kind of plant into the conspiracy world because the lizard people stuff was something even Alex Jones couldn't get on board with. And he was wondering, but I guess they resolved those differences. This was all years and years ago. So I think they're still friends and fellow conspiracy theorists. So David Icke was somebody I first came across, by the way, when I was doing Sea Org recruitment. And I did a video about that and about all the conspiracy theory stuff we would use when we were recruiting people. But David Icke was one of the guys that I used to really endorse. And I thought this guy really knew what he was talking about because I didn't yet know about the alien lizard people part of his conspiracy thing. I had been listening to, as a Sea Org member, as a recruiter, I had been seeing some of his videos where he talked much more rationally about something he called problem reaction solution, which is a conspiracy mindset sort of thing about world events and what's really going on behind the veil, right? And I thought he had a pretty good line of reasoning there back when I was a Sea Org recruiter. I look at it now and I think it's absolutely ludicrous, but at the time I thought he was really, really smart guy. And one of the things that sort of started my crumbling of all the conspiracy theory stuff was when I heard him talk about the lizard people, and I went, oh no, I can't. Lizard people, like what? That's too crazy even for me. And I was a Sea Org Scientology recruiter, right? And the lizard people was a bridge too far for me. I was in no way I was going to possibly give that any credibility. And I went to another Sea Org recruiter who would use the same material I did. And I said, we got to stop talking about this David Icke guy. We got to stop quoting from him, because if anybody ever Googles him and brings up this lizard people thing, we're going to look like idiots. We're going to have egg on our face, right? We can't be referencing this guy. He's nuts. And the other recruiter was like, oh man, you're right, right? But anyway, that was sort of a part of the beginning of the end for me on the whole conspiracy theory world view. So I wanted to tell you about that. So that's my thinking on David Icke. I think he's next to useless to listen to. There's nothing really to be learned from the man. And I hope that helps.